In the ancient, peaceful realm of Valinor, Maedhros stood apart. As the eldest son of the great elven king Feanor, he inherited his father's royal bearing, but possessed a rare, quiet temperance his family lacked. He was a diplomat and a prince, built for a golden age. That age ended in blood. The Dark Lord Morgoth invaded, murdered the king, and stole the Silmarils, 3 holy jewels containing the divine light of the realm. King Feanor's grief was immediate and blinding. In a moment of raw, unchecked passion, Feanor and his 7 sons swore a magical, unbreakable vow. The oath of Feanor bound them to pursue anyone, god, demon, or ally, with relentless violence if they kept a Silmaril from them. Maedhros was the very first son to speak the words. He bound himself to a contract he could not break. A single moment of shared grief shackled a moderate, thoughtful leader to an inescapable destiny. The consequences arrived almost immediately upon chasing Morgoth to Middle-earth. Ambushed under the cover of ash and darkness, Maedhros was taken alive. Morgoth hung the prince by the wrist of his right hand from a steel band driven into the sheer, volcanic cliffs of Thangorodrim. He hung there in agony until his cousin, Fingon, mounted a desperate rescue mission. With no way to break the magical steel, Fingon had only one option to free him. He severed Maedhros' hand right above the wrist. Maimed and traumatized, Maedhros returned to an elven camp fractured by bitter political divisions and infighting over who should lead. To heal the rift, Maedhros stepped forward and voluntarily surrendered his family's exclusive claim to the High Kingship. Giving up absolute power bought his people a crucial peace. He had sacrificed his own authority to stop his family's cycle of pride. Yet, yielding a crown could not invalidate a magical vow. The oath remained intact. Knowing his brothers were volatile, Maedhros moved his faction far away from the other elven kingdoms. He built the fortress of Himring on the freezing northern frontier. Here, he would act as a buffer, ensuring any attack from Morgoth would have to hit his forces first. He also rebuilt himself. Adapting to his mutilation, he trained relentlessly with his left hand until his swordplay surpassed even his former skill. His ultimate political achievement was the union of Maedhros. He united elves, men, and dwarven clans into a massive military front. Instead of waiting behind walls, this combined force would march north, crush Morgoth's armies, and reclaim the stolen jewels. This alliance was his masterpiece. It was a desperate, brilliant attempt to win the war through honorable combat, hoping to fulfill his oath before its dark magic could force him to commit atrocities against his own allies. The plan culminated in the Neamnath Arniodiad, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. The Union collided with the full, terrifying might of Morgoth's reserves. Even against dragons and balrogs, the Union held the line, but the fatal blow came from within. The Easterlings, factions of men who had sworn allegiance to Maedhros, turned their weapons on their allies. The betrayal shattered the Eastern Front. The collapse was absolute. High King Fingon was killed. The dwarven lines broke. Maedhros and his surviving brothers were routed, bleeding and scattered deep into the southern wilderness. The honorable path was dead. Morgoth was now untouchable. To keep his promise, Maedhros would have to turn his blade away from the Dark Lord and start hunting targets he could actually defeat. Maedhros eventually tracked the Silmarils to the refugee havens of Doriath and Sirion. When the survivors refused to hand the jewels over, his desperation curdled into madness. He ordered his warriors to attack his own kind, initiating the horrific kinslayings. Maedhros directed his soldiers into the streets of these sanctuary cities, cutting down families who had already lost everything to Morgoth, all to pry a jewel from their grasp. Yet in the smoldering ruins of the havens, the slaughter paused. Maedhros discovered 2 young boys, Elrond and Elros, abandoned in the woods by the chaos his own army had caused. The oath demanded ruthlessness, but looking at the orphans, Maedhros dropped his weapons. He took the twins into his camp, adopting them, and raising them with fierce, genuine affection. Feeding and protecting the children of a city he had just liquidated left Maedhros in a state of fractured morality. He lived as both a nurturing father and a mass murderer, the same man performing both roles, because the words he spoke in Valinor left him no middle ground. Decades later, divine forces finally overthrew Morgoth in the War of Wrath. The last 2 Silmarils were reclaimed by the victors. Unwilling to yield, Maedhros and his surviving brother snuck into the triumphant camp in the dead of night to steal them. Maedhros finally held the prize that had cost him his family, his hand, and his honor. But the holy light of the Silmaril rejected him. It burned his remaining flesh, refusing to be held by a murderer. The realization broke him. His centuries of suffering and compromise had been for nothing. Defeated in both body and spirit, Maedhros threw himself and the jewel he had bled for into a fiery chasm in the earth. He spent a lifetime trying to outmaneuver his destiny. He surrendered his crown, built a grand alliance, and spared the innocent when he could. But his end proves that no amount of personal virtue can survive a poisoned vow.